Good morning. I'm Jen Haston, and on this week's episode of Haston Helping Hands, I'm going to talk to you about money. Just got really quiet in here. Some of you even turned off the camera. Why is it so hard to talk about money? Well, I polled several of my friends and a couple members of my family, and the thing that I keep coming away from is that people are embarrassed because they don't know enough, or they don't want to talk about it because they might offend somebody by having too much, or if they have too little. It's a level playing field thing. If I tell you I have this much money, you might lose respect, or if I there's a lot of different reasons. But I think the reason that I read about that really compelled me to do my post today is an article that I'm going to post below. Women especially, 80% of women admit that they refrain from discussing finances with family and friends, even though 74% of the women polled in this study want to learn more about finances. You're online with a fantastic resource. I can't tell you how many times I've had eye-opening discussions with people about race, about relationships, about marriage, about parenting. So why wouldn't you talk about money? The other one that really struck me was that 47% of women feel comfortable talking to a financial advisor, whereas 77% feel comfortable talking with their doctor about medical issues. Well, I think it's time that we change that. I'm not happy with that statistic, and reading that just makes me very sad because there's so much information that's available. And I think about, why would that be? Maybe you were not raised to talk about money. Maybe it was considered shameful, or if you talk about it. And when I talk about money, I don't mean like the actual dollars and cents. I mean conversations about investing. I mean conversations about how you budget, how do you plan a meal. All of these things are tied to money. And yet, I don't know about you, but I find myself sometimes really struggling with that. I struggle with it less since my husband and I spent a lot of time getting out of debt and doing smart things with our money. And I'm certainly not an expert. And there's some expertise that I can lend to the subject. And so I am encouraging anybody watching this who is scared or intimidated by money, you hear the word budget and you want to go hide under the covers, reach out to me. Even if I don't know, I'm going to find somebody who does. And I've realized that that's actually one of my winning formulas, is that if I don't understand something, I ask someone. Something I've been thinking about is, how did I learn how to do all the things that I've done? I'm in the middle of a decluttering challenge, and today is day 12. And it is very interesting to me because I started to think about, what do I do? How did I learn to clean? How did I learn to organize? And I'm thinking about the fact that no one really ever taught me to do that. I watched people that I was on stages and sets as a stage manager. I watched what other people did, and I gained the habit. I think about how I learned how to do my makeup. A friend of mine had flawless makeup every time I saw her. And so I finally broke down and asked her, I said, what do you do? And she took a couple of nights and showed me what she did. And I feel much more confident about my makeup now. But before, I was just kind of slapping stuff on and wondering how it looked. And I'm thinking about the questions I've asked other friends about parenting and how they parent their kids. And you don't have to take all the advice, but start the conversation. Ask someone, hey, how do you make your money and what do you do with it? And there's a multitude of podcasts and videos, and it can feel so overwhelming. One of the things I did when I started working on this is talk to all of my friends about why they think people don't talk about money. And some of them said, I don't grant your premise because we actually talk about money. Some of them said it's because in a patriarchal society that was left to the men. I think we can honestly say down with the patriarchy, and that's a really outdated way to think. So let's move on from that. Also, we're socialized not to talk about money. The joke goes that someone will tell you who they're sleeping with before they'll tell you about their bank account. I don't think it's a joke, and I don't think it's funny. I think this is serious. I think that we have the opportunity to affect some real change. And it could be as simple as asking somebody about your 401k. Where you work, they offer a 401k. Most of the time, they match. So it's something to look into because it's money you don't even have to put out there. It's money that they give you for free. So many people don't know about that. So many people don't know about the health savings account and what you can do with it. And these are all things that your HR professional can explain to you because it's part of their job. And it starts as simply as, where are you? And what are you doing with your money? Do you feel like you should be investing it? Sure. Are you in a position to do that? Maybe not now, but in a couple months, maybe. The thing that I'm coming away with all of this discussion is that we should just talk about it. Like, it'll probably feel awkward the first time you open your mouth to say, hey, I noticed that, you went on this trip and like, how did you afford that? Oh, we used a credit card, or, oh, we saved up for that, or we didn't do this for a while. That's called opportunity cost. Like, we didn't spend money on this, so we could spend money on this. Just basic concepts that to me feel really basic because I spent about 7 years learning them. But it doesn't mean that I have all the answers because I absolutely don't. And one of my very sweet mentors, who I believe knows everything, shared with me that she doesn't, and she reaches out when she doesn't know what to do. And she said a lot of times people are embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it because they feel like they don't know about it. If you go by what I was taught, one of the very first money lessons I ever got was to lie to a bill collector and tell him that there was a check in the mail. And that's a pretty rocky foundation. I've had a lot of help. I've had a lot of advice. And going from saying, we don't have the money, to we're choosing to afford different things is so crucial. And in my own parenting, we have started Vivian with talking to her about that's not in the budget, or we're choosing to afford different things, because the words we use truly matter. What do you say about your money and your relationship to it? There was a mantra going around that I really, really like a couple of weeks ago. It's, I don't chase, I attract. Everything I want finds and chooses me. And one of my affirmations is people are giving me money and opportunity daily. And I think that it's so important to have that abundance mentality and think about, okay, so what can I do to bring more money to myself? What can I do to gravitate more opportunity towards me? And it's not all affirmations. There's some hard work to be done, pulling out your bills, seeing what you owe. Are you overwhelmed just hearing the word money? You probably need to ask somebody for help. If you feel like you're in a good shape financially, reach out to somebody else. Reach to someone who is having struggles. Reach to somebody who is always struggling to pay for whatever it is that they need to pay for, because clearly something is off there. Everybody needs help from time to time. When I think about how I was taught to cook, it was because I saw that my friend Alexandra was doing it and doing it really well. And she taught me how to cook, starting with cake balls. And I learned a lot of other things. Certainly not perfect. My husband's actually a better cook than I am. But that's because he practices more than I do and he enjoys it more than I do. And money can be very, very powerful. But at the end of the day, it is a tool. It's a tool to understanding more about your future, and if you're going to plan to move, if you're going to buy a house, there's all kinds of things. It can be so overwhelming. So just starting little by little, take that next first step. So what I'm going to ask you today is, if you are intimidated about money, find somebody who doesn't seem to be, very, 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 very important to remember, doesn't seem to be intimidated by money. They might still be intimidated by money, but handle it well. And ask them, hey, I'm struggling with this. Would you be willing to help me? Or can you point me to some resources? Because, you don't want to employ someone to be your financial advisor without talking to them about it and asking them for all kinds of advice. I would start by saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. What advice do you have for me? Or I have $35,000 in debt. I don't know what to do. Or I'm struggling to pay my bills every month. What can I do? Can you look at this with me? And really listen to the other person and try your hardest to assume that they are there to help you. And if they're not, it'll become really clear, and you should go find somebody who is willing to help you without judgment. Because in the history of us learning everything, there was a time that we did not know. I didn't always know how to walk. I didn't always know how to run, but I learned how. I didn't always know how to study, but somewhere along the way, I learned how to do that. And I think that it's important to remember that when you're learning something new, you need to give yourself a lot of grace to make mistakes, to ask a lot of questions. And remember, your money is your money. So you get to control it, you get to ask questions, and you get to decide where your money's going to go and how your money is allocated. So my message today is about money. And do me a favor and drop a comment and say, you know, I've got my money on lockdown. Jen, I don't worry about this. Or I definitely have some questions, just so I can kind of get a feel of the temperature check of where everybody is. And I will tell you that there are friends who I have discussed really intimate topics with, not going to share them here, but we've never talked about money. I mean, never. And this is friends that I have had for years and years, super close, talked about so many other things, but money's never come up. And I think that that's something I'm seeking to change. So as we move through this, what are your questions about money? Where can you get them answered? Think about that. And I want to thank you for watching. Make sure that you go to YouTube and subscribe and like. I do a message every week to motivate you, inspire you, and frustrate you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jen Haston, and this has been Haston Helping Hands.